Listeners, you're listening to Jordan's Corner, a show dedicated to bringing STEM talent back to the tech industry. Listen to me, Jordan Clement, and my guest, Dr. Sander Srinivasan, as he discusses market trends and talent with me. This show is powered by Source Technology, part of Source Group International. So, Dr. Sander, would you like to start off by giving our viewers an overview of your background?
Yeah, I got into science pretty early on. I did high school in more what is called general science background in India growing up. Studied biology in addition to physics, chemistry, and mathematics. And after that, went into engineering, studied what is called instrumentation and control engineering. It's an interdisciplinary engineering field, including mechanical, electrical, electronics, and computer science. And that's how I got into engineering. I worked for a year and a half after that. And post that, I wanted to get into research. And that's what prompted me to go to grad school, where I ended up with a PhD in biomedical engineering focused on AI.
Awesome. That's great. And, being a PhD student with a biomed engineering background, what was it that made you wanted to, from there, pursue a career in the field of AI? Where did that come from?
So biomedical engineering is a very wide and diverse field, right? So one option was to understand the parallels between human biology and physiology. And at least the early motivations for AI were driven by by wanting to understand and model how the human brain solves many problems. So that's actually also what I did for my PhD. The problem I worked on for my PhD was called the cocktail party problem. That's a fancy name for describing how we pay attention to someone at a party or in a crowded or noisy environment while there are so many distracting noises in the background. So that's how I got into AI. The practical application of this is in making intelligent hearing aids and in making robust speech recognition systems. But instead of doing it in a purely statistical or data-driven manner, some of the architectures and approaches that I used were inspired by our physiology of the auditory system, as well as some of the anatomical constructs.
Okay, and just with regards to, as you say, your time in education over here in the US, how was that transition for you, going from being at college into employment, but in the US? What was that like?
It was maybe because of the fact that I spent so many years in grad school. I was looking forward to going back to a professional role. And I started in research, so that transition was somewhat seamless. Industrial research still has many elements that are similar to academic research. I'm still working on cutting edge problems with unknown solutions, and apply many of the same techniques in discovery and innovation. So that was fairly straightforward for me.
Okay, great. And like when you were completing your PhD and whatnot, were there workshops that were put on at that point by businesses that maybe were looking to attract talent like yourself and highlight where you could be beneficial to their businesses and stuff like that? Or was it sort of, you finish your PhD, where your skills lie, and you had to go and attack the market with your, say, resume and try and find a position?
So I would say a little bit of both. Obviously, I was recruited by many folks, but I was focused on a specific type of opportunities, which also meant I was very actively pursuing those opportunities as well. So I think there were plenty of opportunities, but in order to get to your specific ones, that still needed quite a bit of initiative from my end.
Great, that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. And like from your previous experiences and whatnot, what advice would you give to other STEM graduates like yourself looking to move into the tech field coming out of university or college?
The best advice I can give to folks, which may be something different from what they might have heard, is to get a good, solid foundational knowledge in many of the STEM areas of science and mathematics. That will allow you to adapt to the rapidly evolving fields in technology, as opposed to obsess over certain tools that are popular right now, because tools change over time. But your foundational knowledge will serve you lifelong.
So just to double back on that, so your advice would maybe for, instead of these graduates looking to go niche within their studies per se, is to get a more of a well-rounded understanding of the full STEM spectrum,
Yes.
and then be able to maybe channel that wide spectrum and then utilize that to go niche once they secure employment. That will probably be the best route to go, do you think?
Exactly.
Okay.
I would say one thing we have seen is that technology is very dynamic in the last, especially the pace of innovation has increased dramatically in the last couple of decades. And the folks who have thrived and adapted are the ones who have invested in this broad-based foundational knowledge at the beginning of their education.
Do you think that businesses, large businesses like Microsoft and whatnot, that are at the cutting edge of these technologies when they are coming to market and stuff like that? I know sometimes it can be very hard for the colleges to get their hands on said technology because it is so expensive, right, for them to use. Do you think there could maybe be more done by these bigger businesses from a grant, say, perspective to allow students to be able to work with this technology so they are able to integrate from the get-go when they do maybe make that move into the sort of professional realm?
Yes, and different enterprises are doing that.
Yeah.
Question is always, are they doing enough, right? Microsoft, for example, invests a lot of credits on cloud computing across high school and universities. So that's one of the broadest resource sharing that we're doing, but also related technologies, including themes that we are now leveraging, and computing platforms, computing hardware. So we are doing a lot, but I know that many of our peers are also doing quite a bit. Can more be done? For sure, especially now there is more awareness of underserved community gaps. It's not a broad-based need as opposed to targeted needs that are unique and varied. So respecting that diversity and respecting and personalizing that engagement is probably what we need moving forward.
Sure. Awesome. That's a great point, and I completely agree. Obviously, as you say, you've moved through your career fantastically, and now obviously being director of AI at Microsoft, you've been at Bosch for a number of years and whatnot as well, and managed across lots of different teams at many different levels. So, I'm sure you have many a story of the trials and tribulations of hirings and, the great wins that you've had hiring throughout your career. It'd be great to just get an understanding of, maybe an overview of some of the sort of troubles you have come up against, and what you do see as a success when hiring, either graduates or senior professionals into your team, where you see they're lacking or where you see the process can be improved to ensure that you'll be able to hit your project deadlines and everything is being able to move along smoothly when it comes to that hiring process.
Yeah, I can share a few. So one of the challenges, I have to say, first of all, I've hired mainly for talent in the AI space, right? And one of the biggest challenge in the space is the lack of qualified professionals, and including qualified fresh graduates. That's because it's a new field, so the opportunities have expanded much faster than the time it takes to go through at least the university training pipeline. So few ways that we have found some success, both, I should say, I've found some success in my previous role, include leveraging some non-traditional computing disciplines. So, for example, I had a few people with astrophysics and astronomy background, folks who have looked at massive amounts of data, but in a completely different application. Biostatistics or biophysics is another such example. So having an open mind and getting creative helped quite a bit. And those folks ended up actually being some of the star performers on my team. Currently at Microsoft, we don't have the dearth of applicants, but one of the things that we are also pretty focused on is diversity. So that means engaging not just at the time of recruiting, but continuously with the underrepresented minority groups in AI, whether it's Black in AI or Latinx in AI or women in machine learning, or broadening participation in data mining. So these are some of the groups that we've been engaged with. Those help, right? Where people, you're able to contribute with mentorship and support. Sometimes sometimes I find the candidates are intimidated when they apply to some of these bigger organizations, where they don't see a lot of representation of folks like them. So other thing that we have done recently very successfully, my organization here, particularly in the Cambridge area, is a concept called mock interviews, where we offer coaching, support, and guidance all the way from resume to an actual interview, including interviews, and those things seem to have helped us obtain some success.
That's fantastic. That's great. And I mean, us being an agency that focuses on that STEM talent, we're a massive advocate for, keeping hold of your candidate pool even when they're not active in the market, and being able to have them integrate with your clients and get to know what your clients are like when they are passive in the market. Because, as soon as they do turn, you want them to be able to have that experience and have that exposure to your sort of client base. It's pretty similar to what you guys are doing from that diversity perspective, which I think is great. It's all about engaging with your full marketplace when you look at talent, and not just the active marketplace, as so many other businesses will be doing. You're sort of fighting off hundreds of other businesses for that talent, when there's a whole other pool out there that you guys could be looking at. And that's great that you guys are looking to do that. From an industry standpoint, the whole tech industry is struggling with the lack of STEM talent coming through the pipeline, not only in the sort of AI space, across every other sort of space within that sort of domain. How do you see, as a whole, from an industry perspective, see that moving forward and see them combating it over the next sort of 5 to 10 years?
I think, first of all, the trend is going in the right direction. The amount of students studying or interested in STEM fields in middle and high schools are increasing. The amount of graduates coming out of universities are increasing. And now we have a lot of online platforms, online educational platforms that are supplementing the traditional education and training avenues, right? So I see the trend is, in general, pointing in the right direction. Where we could do, as we discussed earlier, is support more at the early stages, engage with positive role models, positive examples of impact, make some of it is making STEM attractive. It's not boring. It's not for the social misfits, which are like very typical stereotypes, which discourages some folks. But it's also lowering the perceived hardships, right? Sometimes those fields are more expensive to pursue. Sometimes they are harder to find mentors and support resources. So closing those gaps, or at least consciously addressing those gaps, will help quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things we're trying to push and sort of educate people on now, especially during the pandemic, when everyone is using their technology at home far more than maybe they were before, and even at a younger age, having to get your children online to be able to do your online classes and stuff like that. That can be a great point for every business that works in the technology field to highlight that and use that not as an almost like an advertisement tool of actually getting the children at a younger age to realize, as I'm sure you did when you were a child, I'm working on this computer, but what is it behind this screen that actually, makes me be able to do this? I think this is a great time to almost double back on that sort of advertisement of, that mobile phone that you pick up every day of the week wouldn't be running without the likes of ASML or AMD or whatnot from a chip making perspective, and then from Microsoft from a software perspective. Is I think there needs. What's your thoughts on maybe some sort of cross advertisement between your big sort of semiconductor manufacturing businesses and your almost end users per se from a Microsoft perspective that are are using their microservices and whatnot on the back end to sort of show as a whole product or whatever can come back through that whole product life cycle and see the different areas of specialism that people could potentially go into from interest.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I personally, as well as organizationally, we fully understand that you need these broad industry participation. So we are all for it. One of the things I was involved previously when I lived in California was science fair, annual science fair at the baseball stadium. So that's a popular location.
Yeah.
That attracts people to for a variety of reasons, right? And once they come in, they are able to see a spectrum of applications. For example, now some of the breakthroughs we are seeing in the coronavirus mitigations, those could be fantastic things to advertise across. I mean, not just biotech, but like tech industry and and allied STEM fields as well. So yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea. We are doing it. We should do a lot more of it, of course.
Awesome. Well, look, Sundar, thank you so much for your time. I'd love to pick up again on this, as you say, in the new year and see what Microsoft are doing moving into 2021. Also share some of what my other clients are doing moving into 2021. And as you say, I think next year could be an exciting time with regards to we've got a lot of fuel from 2020 to be able to utilize that and see where we can go with that sort of attraction moving into 21. But thank you for your time, and I look forward to speaking with you in the new year and hope you have a wonderful Christmas period and hopefully get some rest in.
Yeah, thanks, Jaden. I wish you to have a relaxed and happy holidays.
Thank you so much, Sandra. I appreciate your time.